On behalf of our hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Cyrus Mistry, I extend you a very warm welcome to all of you on a cold, windy Mumbai evening to spend an evening with Mr. Ratan Tata. We will now present to you what has been a 50-year journey of Mr. Ratan Tata in the Tata Group. Let's begin.
Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
History has been in the making for close to 150 years now. Ironically, it has been written not with an eye on the past, but with a vision that stretches firmly into the future. If there is one company that is living proof of this, it is the Tatas. Today, no Indian company is better poised to embrace the future as the Tatas. As India's largest conglomerate, the group owns about 100 different companies in more than 80 countries, with more than 450,000 employees. It all began in 1860 with Jamshedji Tata, the legendary founder of the company and the visionary behind India's first steps towards industrialization. The next era of the Tatas came under the guidance of J.R.D., who epitomized the way of life and a culture of business that cared for the country and its people. And here, today. Looking back on the last 50 years, it would not be wrong to say it truly gained momentum in 1991. The year that Ratan Naval Tata took over the reins of the Tata Group. And with it ensured a permanent place for the company, not just in the homes and hearts of every Indian, but in history itself. Think about it. The Tata brand is a part of almost every moment of everyday life. From the time you wake up and check your time on your Tata watch, you can drink Tata tea brought to you in Tata trucks made by Tata Steel. You can build an IT infrastructure loaded with a wide array of Tata enterprise and business process solutions, assisted by Tata consultants. You can drive around in your Tata car, talk on a Tata mobile phone network, and check your email on a Tata broadband on a computer driven by Tata Power. In the evening, you can watch Tata Sky TV, shop in a Tata retail store, sprinkle Tata salt on your dinner, and check into a Tata hotel for the night. Internationally, the Tata Group may be best known for the story of the Nano, or the other global acquisitions. But in the coming years, the world will be hearing a lot more of the Tatas, and that, undeniably, is Ratan Tata's legacy. A legacy that almost never came to pass. While it's true that Ratan Tata grew inside the Tata business, no one could say he was groomed to take over. In fact, he started off going in the opposite direction. He headed off to America for his education when he was just 15 years old.
My father wanted me to go to England. He wanted me to be a chartered accountant as he had been. And I was the rebel who wanted to go to the United States, and I wanted to study architecture and engineering. And at the end of my second year at Cornell, I switched. Believe me, in those days when an Indian went abroad, the RBI gave you a very meager allowance. So I was not a rich Indian. I was a struggling student at that time, wondering whether I'd make it to the end of the month before my next check came. All the miles of tracing paper that all of us wasted in one concept after another did one thing. It taught us that we didn't stick with one thing. We tried and we tried and we improved and we reconceived what we had to do. It's no different in business.
He most likely would have stayed on in the US had not his grandmother offered a simple and compelling argument. She was ill and wanted him to be near her. Simple.
My grandmother brought me back. She was old, she was ailing, and she wanted to see me again. And she appealed to me. In those days, even telephone calls were hard. You know, you had to book a call, and they weren't an everyday thing. And she appealed to me, and it touched me. And so I came back for her, or I would not have come.
When he did return, though, it was to join IBM. And there he would have remained if it weren't for a chance call from JRD. Ratan Tata worked his way up in the Tata organization for nearly 20 years, starting with Telco. In 1962, he moved to Tata Steel, then Tisco, where, by his own admission, it seemed that he was learning everything.
It seemed like everyone was concerned that I should not be treated differently, so I was told to stay in an apprentice hostel. And I worked on the shop floor for 6 months in Telco. And then for a couple of years in Tisco on the shop floor. I was attached to various production departments. I was in the blast furnaces, near the furnace, in the steel melting shops. Again, knew every nook and cranny of the Tisco works. It was an endless training program. In hindsight, a very useful one, but at that time, seemed like a terrible waste of time.
Those who knew him well speak about his house resembling an electronics lab, a place that kept him busy taking things apart, putting them together, tinkering with technology, and understanding its relationship with the times. In 1971, he was given charge of Nelco, an ailing electronics company belonging to the group.
No, it was a challenge. It was an industry that was exciting. The electronics industry in those days was, even making radios and TV sets was challenging and exciting. And it was a company filled with young people, and above all, it was an opportunity to dig your teeth into something.
It was in dire straits, with barely a 2% share of the consumer electronics market. However, just when he turned it around from a 2% to a 25% market share, emergency was declared. A weak economy and labor issues compounded the problem, and Nelco's struggle started again.
That was when things started to really become both challenging and interesting.
It is no surprise then that Ratan Tata is often portrayed as a man without a sense of entitlement. He has earned his way up. He has paid his dues again and again and again. Whether it was in 1977 when he was asked to turn around the sick impress mills.
I think the worst day I had, or the worst few days I had, was when the group decided that it was going to go out of textiles, and I was in charge of one of the mills. And that company needed a relatively small amount of infusion of money to run, but it was denied, and the company was taken into liquidation by the Tata Group.
Or when he took over as executive deputy chairman at Tata Motors. This was the turning point, which saw Ratan Tata take on product development and eventually go on to transform the Tata pickup truck to the dashing Tata Sierra. Or in 1988, when he took over from Sumant Mulgaonkar as telco chairman and promptly found himself at the center of a prolonged and violent labor dispute. Perhaps the worst industrial relations slide in Tata history. Ratan Tata stood firm, and eventually the matter was resolved. In an interview some years ago, he recalled that telco was the first company in which he could actually do something. In other companies, he was always put in a firefighting situation.
Two stand out in my mind. One is the major labor strife that took place just after I got involved with Tata Motors. Not of my making, but I bore the full brunt of that. It included stabbings of our officers, beating up of our people, and coping with that over a period of time, I think, contributed immeasurably to my ability to face such issues if they happened again.
In 1993, he voiced his fierce concern on the Bombay riots. The very same decade saw Tata Tea in Assam struggling to protect its employees and the company from extortion. The ULFA demanded military communication equipment. This was immediately rejected by Tata Tea. In fact, Tata Tea, in keeping with the Tata tradition of giving back to the society, set up hospitals, adult literacy centers, childcare centers, a technical training institute, and many schools. The strong sense of values and the ability to take responsibility is not just the bedrock of Ratan Tata's personality. The example he set is followed across the Tata Group. Ironically, an event that brought to light the best values of the Tata Group was perhaps the worst terror attack in the history of India. 2008 saw the Taj Hotel Group at the center of Mumbai under siege.